Hello and welcome to SRIRAM's IES. Today in this video we will be discussing about the crypto winter. What do we actually mean by the term crypto winter and why are we discussing this? Because from the past 2 months we have seen a major slump in the prices of cryptocurrency, declining from $1,26,000 to $85,000. Now, once we set the paradigm of this video, we should understand that why to study this topic or why should be taking care of this topic which popped up in the Indian Express today. Because UPSC already has asked a question on cryptocurrencies in Mains 2021. The question was, what is a cryptocurrency? How does it affect the global society? Has it been affecting Indian society also? Now you were supposed to answer this question, but the basics of cryptocurrency have to be cleared beforehand. Otherwise, this question wouldn't have been answered easily and it popped up in the GS paper 1, which was typically something which was irrelevant, or I would say that out of the box thinking by UPSC. Why so? Because usually GS 3 Indian economy talks about cryptocurrency and we as humanity has evolved from paper currency, or I would say in the ancient times stone currency, metal currency, and then paper, plastic, and now digital currency and then cryptocurrency. Now with this evolution also, this whole topic was usually traditionally covered in GS paper 3, but UPSC asked this question in GS paper 1. Further, UPSC asked one more question in Prelims 2020 and it was about blockchain technology. What is blockchain technology and is this blockchain technology, the data of blockchain technology, is it about cryptocurrencies only or blockchain technology can be used for something else? Now, being good aspirants, we must cover what comes relevant to this in newspapers. Therefore, today's topic, we will be discussing that what are the reasons behind this downward trend of Bitcoin, what is crypto winter and why are we calling it crypto winter? What is the cycle in which cryptocurrencies boom and then slump the prices downwards? Now let's begin the discussion, and the basic context of this news is that there has been a dramatic fall in the prices of cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin only. We will be talking about Bitcoin, that is from $126,000 to $85,000, which is the current price. Due to this, around $1 trillion have been wiped out of the market. Now, if the paradigm is set, if the context is clear, now we should be understanding what is Bitcoin, what are cryptocurrencies, and what is blockchain technology. So the basics of cryptocurrency is very simple. Cryptocurrency is basically a digital token. The digital token, or I would say a token to transact easily digitally on a decentralized platform. This cryptocurrency is, or the payments here come without intermediaries. In the traditional economic setup, what we have is banks and central bank and government. Banks help us to get the payment and settlement done. RBI, being the central regulator of the currency, helps us in the centralization of currency. But Bitcoins, they do not involve any intermediary. The price or value of Bitcoin is determined by the market. It is actually the free market economy, or the free market currency rather we should say about it. Understood? Now next thing which we need to understand is Bitcoin. This cryptocurrency, Bitcoin cryptocurrency, it was launched in 2009 और इसको launch करने वाले इंसान Satoshi Nakamoto. He back then targeted that the supply of Bitcoin should be restricted to 21 million coins only. Now, how is Bitcoin mined? There are small mining machines which do millions of mathematical calculations, which set the data sets together and then this digital token is formed and used as a Bitcoin. But yes, mining can be done. But why to set a cap on mining of this Bitcoin? Because otherwise, if there is unlimited supply of Bitcoins, then there won't be any regulating mechanism in the market which will control the prices of Bitcoin if the supply is unlimited. Therefore, there has to be limited supply, and Bitcoin itself is divisible into 100 million satoshis. Understood? 1 Bitcoin equals to 100 million satoshis. One more thing which we need to remember about the basics is this Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is supported by the blockchain technology, which is actually the ledger. The ledger which we used to use in the accounting terminology. What was ledger? It was simply, ledger is something in which we keep accounts. जिस पे हम हिसाब रखते हैं, जिस पे हम लिखते हैं कि कौन सा खर्चा कहाँ गया और किसके पास कितना पैसा है. Who is the lender and who is the debtor? Who is the creditor? Who is the debtor? Who is lender? Who is borrower? Now this thing has to be recorded on a ledger, but hereby in cryptocurrency we use blockchain or we use the digital ledger, which stores across different networks. It stores in the transparent manner, tamper-proof technology. It stores all the data related to Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies in transactions which are chronologically arranged using a technology known as cryptography. Understood? Now this is the basics behind this I would say cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. If you are clear with this, now we should understand what is the main reason behind the decline of the prices, and Indian Express in the explained section has I would say elaborated on the 4 factors which led to the decline of Bitcoin. The first factor was the interest rate concerns. Now understand, earlier in the economics, in I would say UPSC PYQs also, there was a question asked by UPSC. It was about that if Federal Reserve decreases its interest rate, what will be its impact on Indian economy? And we in the foundation classes used to teach this, that what are the effects of Federal Reserve's change in policy rates on Indian economy. Suppose if we say that US Federal Reserve decreases its repo rate, or I would say policy rate, what will happen? There will be cheaper loans in US market. Maybe those loans taken there will invest that rupee or that dollar into Indian market. That may lead to what? Coming of more FDI into India or FPI into India. Now, that was one reason. That may also lead to other sectors having a multitude of effects, but also this decrease of interest rate will have impact on Bitcoin also. How? US Federal Reserve recently decreased its policy rates by 25 basis points. It means there is a decrease in prices, or there is decrease in interest rates. If there is decrease in interest rates, so what will people do? They will invest this money somewhere. Where should they invest? They will invest it in some assets where they will get better returns. Now remember that why US did this? In order to decrease the unemployment which is there in USA, and US has been facing a scenario of stagflation. So therefore, it was evident that US should have pursued expansionary monetary policy, which is clearly visible over here, decreasing the basis points by 25, decreasing the policy rate by 25 basis points. So this was done in October 2021. However, this signals a pause on the further cuts from January, adding to uncertainty. And if there is uncertainty in US market, it impacted Bitcoin. How? Higher interest rates increase the opportunity cost of holding non-yielding risky assets like Bitcoin. If there are higher interest rates, it means if the higher interest rates are there, one should not invest or keep his investments in Bitcoin because they are highly risky assets. Therefore, if the interest rates are less, what will people do? This will encourage savings over spendings, discourage crypto purchases unless returns are more than interest rates. That is the higher interest rates. But when US decrease the interest rates, it means that it will bring instability into the market. People may somehow invest into Bitcoins. There can be investment into Bitcoin, or people may act otherwise also. Next, there was a crash in Bitcoin prices on 10th of the October. On 10th of the October, Trump administration announced a 100% tariff, additional tariff on all the Chinese goods, which led to investors drawing out their money from Bitcoins. Why so? And it leveraged around, the leverage trades were liquidated and around $19 billion were taken out from the investments. Why? Because there was heavy investment, and this led to a dump of Bitcoins into the market. Of 800,000 Bitcoins were dumped into the market, which led to decrease, or I would say increase in the prices of Bitcoin and decrease in the prices of this increase in the supply of Bitcoins and decrease in the prices of Bitcoins. Understood? Now, this was second reason. The third reason was bearish economic sentiment. What do we mean by bearish economic sentiment? It means that if people think that market is going to be bearish, that is, market is going to be declining. First reason for bearish economic sentiment was tech stock decline. People in technology sector usually hold nearly 50% of the market, but have fallen recently. People are not investing in tech, I would say tech related investments, or I would say टेक्नोलॉजिकली, और आई वुड से टेक कंपनीज के जो स्टॉक्स होते हैं उनमें इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं कर रहे हैं. यूजुअली दिस होल्ड्स अराउंड 50% बट हैज बीन डिक्लाइनिंग रिसेंटली. सेकंड, एआई बबल. पीपल थिंक दैट दिस एआई बबल व्हिच हैज क्रिएटेड और increased the or I would say turned the investor sentiment into positive, or this market investment, or I would say the growth in the market, the bullish nature of the market is because there is an AI bubble, and once this AI bubble will burst, this bullish market will turn into bearish. That is why the upcoming, I would say, that futuristic perspective, the futuristic sentiment of the market led to the bearish activities into the market, and that is why investors now try to avoid the risk. They want that they should not invest into those assets like Bitcoin which are highly risky. That is why the price of Bitcoin will decrease, because there is less investment in Bitcoin, there is less demand of Bitcoin, and that is why prices will decrease. Understood? This is the third factor. The fourth factor, which traditionally Bitcoin was called as a digital gold, that if you invest in Bitcoin, it is rising massively in its price, and that is the promise that Bitcoin will be, or was called as digital gold usually, but this turned out to be a hoax. Why so? Because in reality, Bitcoin comes along with high risk asset, or it comes along with high risk, and that is why it could not stand up to the standard of IMF's, or I would say the gold standard. That is why IMF also suggested countries that you should move away from making cryptocurrency or Bitcoin as a legal tender currency, as was done by El Salvador. El Salvador once did this thing, that they tried to make this Bitcoin as legal tender currency. Now, legal tender currencies are those currencies which are backed by an act of the government. Fiat currencies are those currencies which are backed by the sovereign authority. Understood? So thereby, the Bitcoin may be, or I would say, in the basic economics, we talk about the business cycles or the economic cycles of decline, recession, boom, and this cycle usually goes on. Similarly, Bitcoin cycle also happens, that Bitcoin's price usually gets up or down. Why is this happening? There is a concept, and this concept is known as Bitcoin halving concept, that you decrease the price by half. Why so? or you reward the miners of the Bitcoin by half of the value of that Bitcoin. Why so? Because in order to restrict the supply of Bitcoins to 21 million Bitcoins only, then that is why this concept is used, that is Bitcoin halving, and which creates a 70 to 80% decline in the prices of Bitcoin. But I would say that this time it is different. There has been not a 70 to 80% decline in the market price of Bitcoin, rather there has been a slight decline in the market prices, which leads to apprehensions of economists and investors along that this may not happen to be a crypto winter, and it is too easy to call it a crypto winter. Rather, what we should be seeing is there are two positive factors also, and there are two game changers also in the Bitcoin, which may lead to increase or further stability in the Bitcoin market. Why? First game changer was USA took two steps. One was to allow Bitcoin in the trade of ETFs. All those ETFs which are backed by Bitcoin were allowed to be traded in US market. Thereby, Bitcoin ETFs now hold around 1.4 million coins, which is around 6.8% of the market cap. Second game changer by USA was passing the Genius Act and Trump's return, which helped to understand that there is, I would say, a better understanding in the US government, which is supporting what? These stable coins, which is supporting the cryptocurrencies. And once this is happening, it means that it may turn the market sentiment into positive nature. Now, once we understood the basics, the technology and the nature of Bitcoins, the technology which supports the Bitcoins, everything about it, we also need to understand that this price rise and decrease in the market is somehow influenced by the fiscal policy of the government, that is the acts which were passed by US government, the monetary policy of the government, and also by the market related factors also, because the halving concept of the Bitcoin. Now, once we understood these factors, you must develop an understanding that this UPSC, if it asks a question that how cryptocurrencies can be affected, or which all activities in the market can affect cryptocurrency prices, like monetary policy, fiscal policy, or market activities, or the technology related to cryptocurrency, yes, they all will affect the prices of cryptocurrency in the market, whether that is Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other coin. Understood? We need to clear the basics, and that is where UPSC asks the questions. With this, we conclude today's discussion. I wish you all the best. Thank you once again for joining in here. Jai Hind.